My name is Jessica Luke and I'm the English librarian at ULM. Today we will talk about getting started with the research process and how to access library resources. I'm all about working smarter, not harder. I want to make the research process easier for you and more efficient. Let's say, hypothetically for me, realistically for you, that you have to write a research paper and our demo topic is marijuana. You know you need this topic and you know that you need resources. Now that you're in college, you will find professors expect a different caliber of research and resource. When you're doing research at this level, you need to use quality, credible research in your paper, and we will talk today about how to find those. First thing you need to do is make sure a research topic is manageable. If a topic is too broad, you will have too much to say, and it will make finding resources more difficult. So we want to narrow our topic by asking ourselves some questions. First, I asked myself, what do I find interesting about a topic? When I was doing background research on the topic of marijuana, I found it interesting that there are so many conflicting opinions on the topic. On one hand, you will have people saying, marijuana is the devil's weed. Other people will say, take a toke, marijuana is chill. Others will talk about therapeutic uses of marijuana. As far as what it might be useful to learn, I wanted to read more about therapeutic uses of marijuana and how it's helped people. You don't generally have people getting this upset about plants. First off, start with asking yourself, what do you know, and go from there. The personal experience that made me want to learn more about medical applications was that my grandfather had cancer. He suffered from nausea and a loss of appetite. I asked myself, could marijuana have made his quality of life better? As far as misconceptions, I knew from my friends from Colorado that marijuana could be taken in other forms rather than just smoked, which would not have worked for my grandfather since he had lung cancer. Also, think about any myths about the topic. I read that marijuana is a gateway drug, which some sources agree with. Other sources say that if you are susceptible to drug abuse, you will be more apt to use another drug after marijuana, not just because you've used marijuana one time. It would be best for people not to think that is true because it creates a stigma for people that are wanting to use marijuana medically. Asking these questions will help you think about what else you want to learn about the topic. Clearly, I'm invested in the medicinal uses of marijuana. I know it can help with pain relief, increase appetite, and decrease nausea, but what else do I want to know? Asking these questions can help me narrow and focus. Narrowing and focusing your topic can help you develop a thesis statement. A thesis statement is the map for your paper. If you find information that doesn't provide evidence for your thesis statement, then do not use it in your paper. The thesis statement will help you develop keywords that are important in the research process. Many freshmen find research deeply stressful, so I hope this presentation is going to help. One of the first things you should do as you're searching is keep a list of keywords. I will show you how keywords are important in the research process. This is an example of a list of keywords, and we'll also talk about related synonyms. You'll notice at the top, I have the start of a thesis statement. Marijuana should be legalized for medicinal purposes. From that thesis statement, I took the keywords marijuana, legalized, medicinal, and purposes and wrote them down in my list. Cannabis is the scientific name for marijuana, so I wrote that down. Other words that I wrote down are forms of some of the words in my thesis statement. So I wrote down legalization, medicine, and medical. Medical marijuana is different than recreational marijuana, and adding these words can help make my thesis statement a little tighter. Other things that you can consider adding in general to a keyword list, you could consider the works of names or titles of things. When you put quotation marks around two words when you're searching, that's called phrase searching, And when you search in the database, you'll get a search in the database that has those two words together. So now we have medical marijuana should be legalized for medicinal purposes. Another word I added was law, but also I added treatment because we need to know more. Medical marijuana should be legalized for medicinal purposes. When I think of, I'm adding treatment because when I think of why, we can think of what it's used to treat. And there are many, many things that medical marijuana can treat. So I'm going to just focus on 3 of them. So for my keyword list, I added seizures, migraine/headaches, and glaucoma. Also, I know in general it can be helpful with pain relief, and I know it can be helpful for the treatment of chemotherapy. So I wrote those words down too. But let's see our thesis statement now. Medical marijuana should be legalized for the treatment of seizures, glaucoma, and nausea as a result of chemotherapy. So how this helps us is when I'm writing my paper, I write my introduction, then the treatment of seizures, and then the paragraph after, the treatment for glaucoma, and then the last paragraph before the conclusion, I'm going to write about how medical marijuana treats nausea. And that you can see from our thesis statement, you get sort of a roadmap for your paper. So basically, I want to reiterate, keep a list of keywords to help you focus and organize. So we're not searching yet. I want you to pay attention to this because you're going to hear your professors say time and time again, use the scholarly literature, use the peer-reviewed literature, use the professional literature. It matters. When you start with the library, you are guaranteed this information. When you start with the internet, you are not guaranteed it. There are some exceptions like government websites where the funding is tied to publishing their research on the internet for free. An example of this is the Human Genome Project. Part of the agreement for their funding was to make their research publicly available. Websites with the domain .edu are normally educational institutions, and some of them get grant funding and also put their research out on the web for free. How many of you want to sit there and think about whether what you're looking at is legit, whether it's appropriate, whether or not it meets the criteria, whether or not your teacher is going to let you use it? How many of you want to worry about that? You don't have to. Start with the library because everything we have is research oriented. So, what are scholarly resources? First of all, they're written by experts like your professors. They focus on a particular field, topic, or discipline, and they're intended for others in a field or career. Also, you'll notice in articles that are scholarly, you'll notice that the wording is proper language and technical vocabulary. Also, you'll notice in scholarly resources, there are no advertisements. Basically, research-oriented and scholarly are the same kind of resource. Articles that appear in journals are examples of scholarly resources. Next, we'll talk about popular resources. Journalists are effective and intelligent communicators and should be able to communicate on any topic, but that doesn't make them experts on it. Just because someone can write about fixing a broken leg because they've done research doesn't mean you want them setting the broken leg in the emergency room. You want a doctor to do it that's gone to medical school and is an expert on the procedure. Journalists or people that write on the internet may be enthusiastic about a topic, but do not confuse that with expertise. Newspapers are an example of a popular resource and have a little bit of something for everyone with broad topics. They also appeal to a wide audience, and magazines and newspapers use more everyday language. What is wrong with advertising? Articles that appear with an ad can be biased toward the advertiser. You want to get the most objective research you can, so be careful. These sources are not research-oriented. There is an exception if you're talking about current events. There will not have been enough time for scholarly research to have been done on current events, so popular resources are okay to use in that case. Magazines and newspapers are examples of popular resources. Just a few tips before we search. Keyword searching is how you're going to be conducting most of your searching. Keyword searches are the combination of keywords and the operators and, or not, and you put these together to produce search strings. Remember, keywords will come from your thesis statement, but you ought to include related words and concepts as well. When using phrases like medical marijuana, you need to put the phrase in quotation marks, so the database will search the two words together. Here are a few search string examples. So later on in this presentation, we're going to go to the library databases. These would be examples of search strings we would enter into the EBSCO search box. Medical marijuana and legalization and treatment. Marijuana and legalization, not drug cartels. If I were to use not, what's happening there is the library database is going to search for articles that have the words marijuana and legalization, but it will eliminate any of those that have the words drug cartels. Make sure that you use the actual word and when you're researching in the databases and not the plus sign or the ampersand. Also pay attention to whether the words are singular or plural and be careful of spelling. A few more tips. Do create a list of keywords. Use underlining, highlighting, and bookmarks. Use sticky notes. Get organized. As far as don'ts, try not to multitask more than you can handle at a time. Pace yourself. Try not to procrastinate. Allow enough time to work on your rough draft and to go see the writing center or the librarians for help. One of the biggest things, though, is don't plagiarize. Plagiarizing just means that you're taking somebody else's word and not giving them credit for it in your paper. You'll learn about that in your English classes, so make sure not to make that mistake. So let's do this. We know that we need scholarly resources on marijuana, specifically its legalization for the treatment of various health issues. We know keywords and search strings that we can use. We have the skills we need to get started. So let's start with the library's website. So we go to www.ulm.edu/library. So this is ULM Library's website. I'm going to show you a few things before we do our search. If you need to find a book or an ebook, you can search in the library catalog. If you're looking for a database by name, this is where you would go. If you're interested in seeing what databases there are by subject, you could go to this link. Another service we offer is interlibrary loan. You could register for this service if you're interested in an article or a book that we do not own. This service is included in your tuition and we would get it for you. Now we're going to go to EBSCO Discovery, which is the equivalent of the library's Google search box. For the first search, I'm going to put in medical marijuana and treatment and seizures and click go. One thing you're going to notice is you're going to get a lot less results than Google. 169 is pretty good. Right here, you'll see the title of the article. If you want to pull up the article, you can click on HTML full text or PDF full text. But I'm going to go in here and click on the article title. There's some things in here that you'll notice. Here are some subjects that appear in the article, but something that's really useful is this abstract because that's a summary. So you could quickly scan the summary and see if this article is something you want to read, and if not, you can move on. Some features over here, Google Drive allows you to save an article in your Google Drive if you have one. And also, if you see this golden ticket cite button, let me show you that. I'm going to show you what a citation is. Especially in an English class, they have different styles of ways to do citations, and one style is MLA format. Here you see the authors, the title of the article, the name of the journal, the volume and number, the date, and also the range of page numbers. So that's what a citation is. Next, we're going to go back to our result list. If we were in a situation where we had to narrow a result list and we needed to broaden it back out, we could cut off some search words and click search. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to show you how you can narrow down your results. You can scroll down, and if you see full text checks, that just means everything in your list you can look at, because we do have subscriptions to those articles. Scholarly peer-reviewed means all of the results are research-oriented. One way to cut your results down is if, in some cases, you're going to have a teacher and they're going to say you can only have 10-year-old articles. You can put in a date right here and click enter, and you're going to see that cuts some of our results out. Another way to cut results is you can choose a certain type. Like if you know you wanted academic journals, you can click on that and it'll cut your results down. If you knew you only wanted English articles, you could do the same thing and cut your results further. But the most useful of these is the subject limiter, which let me click on show more. I can scroll down through these. Basically, these are the main article topics. So I can scroll down. Since I'm doing seizures, epilepsy is sort of related to that. So I'm going to click on that to reduce my results. Now you're going to see we have cannabis for the treatment of epilepsy in our articles. Now I'm going to go back to my presentation. All right, so now that you have the resources you need, either digitally or physically, if you've printed them out, this will be when underlining and highlighting comes into play, as well as notes and sticky notes. Documentation is also important. In order to avoid plagiarism, several of our databases like EBSCOhost will generate citations for you. Next, if you need a hand with the research process at any point, ask the librarians. We also check for documentation such as quotations and citations. If you'd like someone to check your writing, go to the right place on the 3rd floor of Walker Hall. Recap. When doing research, make sure you have a manageable topic, create a list of keywords and search strings, bear in mind that you need scholarly resources which can be found in the library, search the library's resources using the keywords and search strings, bearing in mind the tips we discussed. Make sure you document your resources. EBSCOdiscovery searches all of the library's content, but you can also search relevant databases only. In that case, select databases based on your research needs for a class like this. Focus on databases related to your topic, but also don't forget to think outside the box. Use parameters like scholarly peer-reviewed and full text, and even publication date to make the results list more manageable. Some databases will create citations for you. Take advantage of that for accurate citations. The librarians can help you with research, including citations and documentation. The Right Place can help you with writing. We're going to stop this presentation and I'm going to be available for questions. Thank you all so much for having me today.